Welcome back to the deep end, everyone.
Hey there.
I hope you're settled in comfortably. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're just winding down for the night.
Or maybe you're looking for that one idea that's going to completely flip your worldview upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are, well, you've definitely come to the right place today.
You really have.
So pull up a chair, throw another log on the fire, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Unless you actually have a fire, in which case, please invite us over.
Ha, right. Because tonight we are going on a journey that sits right at this crazy intersection of the mysterious, the psychological, and the surprisingly, shockingly practical.
Yes.
We are taking a deep dive into the Seth material.
It really is a fascinating intersection, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, I think a lot of people hear words like metaphysical or channeling, and they expect these sort of vague platitudes.
Right, like just love and light.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just love and light, good vibes only, that sort of thing. But what we're looking at today is a text that blends deep metaphysical insight with very grounded and sometimes startlingly specific biological mechanics. It's got a bit of a late-night campfire vibe to it, sure, but with the rigor of a graduate-level psychology seminar.
It really does. It's relaxed. It's a little chilling in places like genuinely spooky sometimes.
Oh, definitely spooky.
And I think this is what surprises people who haven't actually read Seth. It's also got this incredible vein of humor running through it.
It's very dry, very witty.
Very. And today we are looking at a very specific record. We're getting into session 346 from the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth material.
Yes. And just to ground us in time, because context is everything here.
Always.
The date of record for this session is Wednesday, June 14, 1967.
1967.
Right. And it began at exactly 9:00 p.m. So just picture the scene for a second. You're in Elmira, New York.
Correct.
It's the late 60s. Jane Roberts, who channels Seth, is sitting in her rocker, or maybe at the table, probably pacing a bit as she goes into trance.
Yeah, she was known to pace.
And her husband, Robert Butts, is furiously taking notes in shorthand.
Doing the hard work.
Doing the very hard work. And then Seth, this energy personality essence, comes through using Jane's voice to deliver what is essentially a masterclass on the mind-body connection.
And the mission for this deep dive today is pretty specific. We aren't just talking about, create your own reality in a general bumper sticker kind of sense.
No, we are getting into the weeds.
We really are. We're unpacking the intricate, sometimes very messy connection between personality quirks, deep-seated childhood trauma, and actual physical biology.
Yeah.
We are going to try and answer a question that sounds like science fiction, but might actually be science fact.
And what's the question?
Can your own stubbornness actually create chemicals that freeze your body?
It is such a profound question.
Isn't it?
Because it completely challenges the entire model of how we view illness. But before we really get into the weeds of pectorin and peanut oil,
which, yes, is a real part of this session, I promise.
We need to make sure everyone knows where this is coming from and the spirit in which it is offered.
Important housekeeping time. Listeners, this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Yeah.
We are drawing directly from the work published by the New Awareness Network. And if you find yourself thinking, man, I need to read this whole book,
which you probably will after this hour.
You definitely will. We strongly encourage you to visit sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
That's right.
That is where you can get the source material we're discussing today. Support the source, folks. It matters.
It really does matter. So let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We're dealing with a session where the entity, Seth, is addressing the physical condition of Ruburt.
And just for anyone new to this, Ruburt is the name Seth uses for Jane Roberts.
Right, referring to her whole self, beyond just the current female personality she identifies with in that lifetime. So at this point in the summer of 1967, Jane, or Ruburt, was dealing with some really severe physical symptoms.
We're talking joint stiffness, paralysis-like sensations.
Really debilitating stuff.
Yeah. And Seth doesn't pull any punches at all. He starts right off with a psychological profile that I think a lot of us might recognize.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just about Jane. It's about a certain type of person. Maybe it's you listening right now. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's your best friend.
Yeah.
He talks about Rupert's all-or-nothing nature.
It is the double-edged sword of focus. Seth says, and I'm quoting directly from the text here, Rupert's habit is to direct his energies unstintingly focused, in a more or less single direction.
Unstintingly. I just love that word.
It's a great word.
We do not use it enough.
No, we don't. It means without restraint, without holding back a reserve.
Right. It implies there's no safety net whatsoever. It's just flooring the gas pedal.
Precisely. And a consequence of that is what Seth calls complete desolation versus complete joy. Listen to this analysis from the source. Seth says, when he feels desolate, therefore, the desolation you see is almost complete to him.
Let's just stop there for a second, because that is heavy.
Very.
Complete desolation. It means there's no middle ground.
Right.
It's not just, I'm having a bad Tuesday. It's the world is ending, the sun has gone out, and there is zero hope.
It's binary. It's a toggle switch, not a dimmer.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And because there are no conflicting streams of energy, no part of his brain saying, hey, cheer up, it's not so bad, the emotion just takes over the entire landscape of his reality.
But then you have to flip the coin on that.
You do.
Because if the lows are the Mariana Trench, well, the highs must be Mount Everest.
Exactly. Seth notes he is as stubborn in it as he is in preserving his joy when he is joyful. That word stubborn is key here. We tend to think of stubbornness as a negative trait, right?
Yeah.
Usually associated with refusing to change an opinion or being difficult in a fight.
Right, like an argumentative teenager.
But Seth is framing it as an emotional rigidity. Ruburt simply lacks the ability to compromise emotionally.
So when he's sad, he is only sad. He refuses to let even a tiny little bit of happiness in to dilute the sadness.
No dilution allowed.
He's committed to the bit.
He is fully committed to the purity of the experience. And that intensity is a trap.
Yeah.
It's a strength because it creates unswerving loyalty. Seth actually mentions later in the session that his loyalty to Ruburt is absolute. You definitely want a friend like that in your corner.
Oh, for sure.
But it also creates unswerving bitterness. If you cross him, or if he perceives a wrong, that bitterness is just as absolute, just as unstinting as the loyalty.
Honestly, it sounds exhausting.
It is incredibly metabolically expensive to live that way.
I can imagine. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. This is the twist.
Yeah.
Because you would think someone this stubborn, this absolute, would be arrogant, right? Like, I'm right, you're wrong, get out of my way. But Seth says Ruburt actually overblames himself.
That is the paradox of rigidity.
Yeah.
Because he has such a strict, almost puritanical sense of right and wrong, when he feels that bitterness, he judges himself for it.
Oh, wow.
He thinks he shouldn't be bitter. He thinks a good person wouldn't feel this way.
Because he's layering it.
Yes. So now he has the bitterness, which is already incredibly heavy, and then he piles a massive mountain of guilt right on top of it for having the bitterness in the first place.
It's a compounding pressure cooker.
It really is. And eventually the pressure cooker blows, or in this specific case, paradoxically, it freezes.
It's just terrifying.
Seth mentions that this painful episode, these physical symptoms, the stiffness, the near paralysis, was actually necessary.
That's a really tough one to swallow.
It is.
I mean, I think if you tell anyone who is dealing with chronic pain, hey, this is actually necessary, you might get punched in the face.
Oh, absolutely, you would. It sounds very callous on the surface.
Yeah.
But Seth frames the illness not as a punishment, but as a mechanism for release. He says, the release and self-knowledge gained in this last painful episode will allow him to bring more freedom to our sessions. Essentially, the personality had become so tight, so rigid, so wound up in this endless cycle of bitterness and guilt that the only way to break that shell was through a physical crisis.
It's like a fever breaking.
Exactly.
You have to get sick to get better. The body essentially forces you to stop because your mind absolutely won't let you.
And without it, Seth claims, the work, the channeling, the books, the very material we are reading today couldn't continue.
Wow.
The psychological blockage was becoming a literal physical wall. And that leads us directly into the biology of it, which is where this session gets truly chilling.
Let's move into that segment 2. The body as a chemical factory.
Yeah.
Because usually when we hear the word psychosomatic, we think, oh, it's all in your head.
Right.
Like you're just imagining the pain. Oh, you're just stressed. Take a nap. You'll be fine.
Right. That's the dismissive way our modern culture tends to handle it. But Seth is saying something very, very different. He's saying the head is literally changing the chemistry of the body.
It's not imaginary. It's manufacturing.
Manufacturing is the perfect word. Seth describes a specific biological mechanism. It starts with that rigidity of attitude we just talked about.
Right.
That leads to a self-destruction trend. And then, boom, the factory starts up.
He describes it as a, quoting here, resultant manufacture of various chemicals.
Yes. Now, modern science knows all about cortisol and stress hormones, but Seth gets remarkably specific here in 1967.
He really does.
He talks about a cocktail of two opposing forces. First, an overproduction of adrenaline.
Which keeps him stirred up.
Right, so the engine is revving, high anxiety, high alert, the foot is stomping down on the gas pedal. But then, Seth mentioned the second chemical.
And this is the weird one.
He says there's an overproduction of a chemical I believe called pectorin, or something very similar.
Pectorin. Okay, I have to stop you there.
I know.
Because I've looked this up. I dug through medical dictionaries. I looked at neurotransmitter lists. There isn't a standard chemical called pectorin in modern textbooks.
No, there isn't.
I mean, pectin is a fiber, sure, used in making jelly. Is Seth talking about jelly?
It's unlikely he means fruit preserves, though the image is pretty funny.
Right.
This is where we have to interpret the channeled material carefully. Seth often uses terms that are either root-based, metaphoric, or perhaps referring to a substance we just haven't isolated or named in the exact same way yet.
Makes sense.
Pect refers to the chest, like pectoral, or to congealing and solidifying, like pectin.
So if we look at what the chemical actually does, rather than just getting hung up on the name.
Exactly. Look at the function. Seth describes the effect of this chemical. It physically slows him down. It creates heaviness of limb, swelling, and immobility.
Wow.
So just think about that combination. You have adrenaline telling you to fight or flee revving the engine to 8,000 RPM, and this pectorin substance slamming on the brakes, causing the body to literally freeze and swell.
It's the biological equivalent of driving your car with the parking brake on.
Worse, it's driving with the parking brake on while pressing the gas pedal entirely to the floor.
Oh, man.
The friction, the heat, the wear and tear, that is exactly what is happening to Ruburt's nervous system.
That is a terrifying image.
It is.
And Seth explains the why behind this chemical production. He says he felt danger strongly but could not run.
Which is the literal definition of a nightmare.
It really is. The body reproduced the exact state of being trapped. Because Ruburt felt psychologically cornered by his past, by his rigidity, by his emotions. His body manufactured the chemicals to simulate being physically trapped.
It's a perfect mirror. If you deeply believe you cannot move forward in life, your body eventually says, okay, I will make it so you physically cannot move forward across this room.
And this leads to those terrifying night symptoms.
Yeah.
Seth talks about Ruburt waking up in the middle of the night, entirely unable to move. Sleep paralysis, essentially.
It's a freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
But Seth connects this directly to pre-adolescent fears. He says it links back to the fear of being unconscious, in bed, and helpless while a parent figures into the trauma. It's not just adult stress he's dealing with. It's a massive regression.
So he's not just an adult having a bad dream about work or taxes. In that moment, chemically and psychologically, he's a child again.
He is a vulnerable child in a dark room hearing footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
The fear is primal. And because the fear is, I am helpless, the body creates the physical paralysis to match the belief.
That is so spooky. It's like the ghosts of childhood are manifesting as literal chemistry in the blood.
And that's a perfect segue into the specific ghosts Seth brings up.
Yes.
Because it isn't just general trauma. In segment 3, we see Seth acting almost like a psychoanalytical detective.
Mm-hmm.
He's connecting very specific physical symptoms to very specific lived memories.
It definitely gets a little Freudian here.
It does.
But in a very tangible way. Let's talk about the morning symptoms.
Okay.
Ruburt apparently had a really, really hard time getting going in the AM. Stiff, sore, slow. I mean, I'm not a morning person either, but this sounds pathological.
It was pathological. And Seth asks, well, who else do we know like that in Ruburt's life?
Right.
It turns out Ruburt's mother found it very hard to get moving in the morning. And his aunt was a slow riser who always felt sickly in the mornings.
So it's a learned behavior, like monkey see, monkey do.
It's deeper than just mimicking. It's unconscious suggestion.
Okay.
Ruburt adopted these suggestions into his biology. He grew up seeing the women in his life, the authority figures, the models for how to be an adult woman struggling to move in the morning.
Yeah.
So at a deep subconscious level, he equated being a mature woman with being stiff and sickly in the morning.
So to him, waking up fresh and energetic would almost feel wrong.
Yes.
Like he wasn't doing adulthood right.
Exactly. It would feel like a betrayal of the established family pattern.
Wow. But then it gets darker.
It does.
The imagery of the wheelchair. This part actually gave me chills when I was reading it.
This is undoubtedly one of the most chilling parts of the entire session.
Yeah.
Ruburt had a specific symptom where his arms were crooked. He physically couldn't straighten his elbows.
Which is such a specific, odd constraint. Why the elbows? Why not the knees or the fingers?
Seth traces this back to a long-forgotten image of Rupert's mother.
She was in a wheelchair.
Yes. In this specific memory that Ruburt had completely buried, his mother is in a wheelchair and her arms are bent.
Oh, man.
Ruburt deeply feared ending up in a wheelchair himself, feared becoming his mother. But the symbolism goes even deeper than just visual copying.
How so?
Seth says he felt helpless to push away his difficulties.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's visualize that. If you want to push something away, a person, a heavy box, a bad situation, what do? You extend your arms.
You lock your elbows out.
Precisely. Pushing requires extension. If you cannot straighten your arms, you physically cannot push things away. You cannot defend yourself.
Exactly. So the symbolic internal feeling of I can't keep this bad stuff away from me became a literal physical inability to extend the arm.
That is mind-blowing. The body is literally acting out a metaphor.
It is the literalization of language. I can't push through. This becomes my arms won't push. The body is listening to the internal monologue and saying, your wish is my command.
That's actually terrifying.
It really is.
Because think about how often we say things like that to ourselves. I can't handle this. It makes me sick. I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders.
And then we wonder why we have severe back pain or chronic nausea.
Yeah. But it's not all doom and gloom in wheelchairs in this session.
Thankfully, no.
There is a humorous interlude here regarding housework, specifically ironing.
Yes, thank goodness for a little levity. Seth takes a moment to address a domestic grievance. Apparently, Jane Ruburt absolutely hated ironing.
And Robert, her husband, must have asked Seth about it, or maybe he was complaining that his shirts were wrinkled.
I feel seen. I hate ironing, too. It's the worst chore.
It really is. But for Jane, it wasn't just laziness, was it?
No, it was rebellion. High-stakes rebellion. Seth explains that as a child, Jane had to iron on demand for a fastidious mother. The mother was obsessive about it. Everything had to be perfectly crisp. So as an adult, refusing to iron became a mark of rebellion he allotted himself.
It's like, you can't make me do this anymore. I am the captain of my own ship, and this ship has very wrinkled sails.
Exactly. It's a small victory. It's a way of asserting independence from that controlling mother figure. I will not iron, and therefore I am free.
But then we have the story about the bedpan, which is, well, it's dark humor.
Yeah.
It's that kind of laugh so you don't cry situation.
This one is rough. It paints a very vivid picture of the household dynamic. The mother would demand the bedpan right before meals.
Just picture that. You're sitting down to dinner, you're hungry, the food is hot, and suddenly, bedpan.
Seth analyzes this as a highly calculated power play. The mother would ask for the bedpan just as dinner was served.
Oh.
Ruburt would have to help, which was unpleasant physically and aromatically, but the real kicker was that his food would get cold while he was helping her.
That is so passive-aggressive. It's literally weaponized bodily functions.
It created a complex web of deep resentment. Ruburt resented the mother for ruining the meal, but he also denied himself the one food.
Right.
It taught him a pattern of over-submissiveness. He would submit to the demand, but he would just seethe with inner rage while doing it.
And that rage, that swallowed anger, that's the fuel for the fire, isn't it?
That is exactly what fueled the chemical factory we talked about earlier. The pectorin, the freezing up, it's all that swallowed anger turning into cement in his joints.
It's amazing how these little domestic moments, ironing, a cold dinner, can leave such massive scars.
They really do.
It's not always the big car crash or the war zone. Sometimes trauma is just cold mashed potatoes and a demanding voice.
They are the building blocks of the personality. And when the personality freezes, the body freezes.
So we have the diagnosis: rigidity, fear of the past, chemical freezing, ghosts in wheelchairs.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the cure. Because Seth is nothing if not practical, even if his prescriptions are, well, let's just say they wouldn't get FDA approval today.
To say the very least.
In segment 4, we get the Seth prescription. And it involves a trip to the pantry. Peanut oil.
Yes. Not a pharmaceutical, not a steroid. Peanut oil.
Okay.
Seth instructs Robert to buy peanut oil and rub it on Rupert's elbows, shoulders, and knees for 3 days.
Now I have to ask, and I'm going to be the skeptic here.
Please do.
Is this magic? Is this superstition? Rub the magic nut oil on the bad spots. Or is there actual logic here?
It's a fair question. It sounds like an old wives' tale. But Seth claims a biological mechanism for it.
He does.
Yes. He says there's a quality in the oil, an extract from the peanuts that is immediately dissolved through the skin. He claims this extract lubricates and eases both the joints and muscles.
Direct transdermal lubrication, like greasing a rusty hinge.
Essentially. He even suggests that eating raw peanuts and peanut butter is beneficial.
I mean, I love peanut butter.
It's interesting because peanuts are legumes. They have specific fatty acids, niacin, magnesium. Whether modern dermatology would back up the idea that peanut oil penetrates all the way to the synovial fluid in the joints is debatable.
Debatable is the polite word.
True. But the specificity of it, rub it on for 3 days, wait 3 days, renew, suggests a very targeted treatment plan. It's ritualistic, but Seth insists it's chemical.
And he also has some dietary advice. Apparently, orange juice is on the naughty list.
Only in combination. This is very specific.
Okay.
Seth advises plain apricot juice. He says orange juice mixed with milk or cereal is acidic and difficult for Ruburt's system at that specific time.
Note to self, cancel the mimosa with the morning cereal.
Probably for the best anyway.
But the most profound cure for me wasn't the peanut oil. I mean, greasy elbows are one thing, but the psychological cure was the dream book.
Yes. This brings us right back to the psyche. Seth links the physical symptoms to blocked creative energy.
Remember the crooked arms, the inability to push away difficulties.
Well, Seth notes that the arm crookedness started when Ruburt turned down a summer position, and crucially, his manuscript, the dream book, wasn't ready.
He wasn't working. He was blocked. He was procrastinating.
And the moment he started typing again, Seth says, indeed, his fingers released when he began to type again on that book.
That gives me chills. The fingers physically released when they were allowed to do the work they actually wanted to do?
It's the release valve. Creative expression wasn't a hobby for Ruburt. It was a biological necessity.
Wow.
The energy was dammed up. Because he wasn't writing, that energy had nowhere to go, so it turned inward and created pictorin and tension. Typing opened the sluice gate.
So the energy flowed out into the paper instead of attacking the joints.
Exactly.
So the takeaway there is, write the book, or your body will make you pay for it.
In a sense, yes. If you are a creator, you must create. Suppressing that drive is dangerous. It's like capping a volcano.
Seth also gives some very practical advice for those night terrors we mentioned earlier. The paralysis, the fear of the dark.
He gives 3 methods, and they are surprisingly simple.
What's the first one?
First, rise at once.
Just get up.
Break the pattern physically. If you feel the fear, get out of bed. Don't lie there soaking in it. Don't negotiate with the terror. Move.
Move the body to prove to the mind that you can move. See, I'm not paralyzed. I'm walking to the kitchen.
Exactly.
And the second?
Second, visualize Seth. Ruburt is told he can tell himself that Seth is watching over him.
That makes sense.
This dissipates the fear of being alone. It's using a protective figure to counter the threatening figure of the past.
And the third one?
Wake the partner. Robert? Because the trigger is aloneness.
It's the fear of being the helpless child in the dark. Waking another adult breaks that illusion entirely.
It proves you are safe, you are an adult, you are not abandoned, and there is someone else in the room who can turn on the light.
Moving on to segment 5. We've looked at the trauma and the cures. What is the forecast? Because this session takes place in 1967, and reading it, they sound so stressed.
They really do.
They were worried about money, health, everything.
It does sound like a crisis point.
Mm-hmm.
But Seth is incredibly optimistic here. He says the energies are swinging back.
He mentions the thyroid specifically.
Yes. Apparently, Ruburt's thyroid activity was depressed.
Why?
Because he feared his previous history. The fear slowed his metabolism. The thyroid regulates speed, energy, burn. Fear is a cold, slow vibration.
Right.
But Seth says this is normalizing. He predicts weight gain, which was actually a very good thing in this context.
Right, because Seth notes that Rupert's weight loss was a defense mechanism.
To avoid looking like his mother, who was stout, Ruburt made himself thin, almost wasting away, to visually dissociate from the woman he feared becoming.
That is so sad.
It is. But as he healed the trauma, he could allow himself to inhabit his body more fully, which meant gaining a healthy weight.
And the financials. Because nothing stresses people out like money.
Seth says the financial predictions were derailed by this tumultuous reaction, the illness. But now that the energy is released, the financials are swinging back to their aid. The energy that was being used to create illness is now free to create abundance.
It's all the same energy, isn't it?
That's the core teaching. You have a limited budget of energy. You can spend it on making pectorin and freezing your joints, or you can spend it on writing books and making money. You cannot do both.
And finally, the prescription we all want to hear. A vacation.
The vacation mandate.
Okay.
But notice, it's not just go have fun. It's therapy.
Okay.
Seth is very specific. He says, choose definitely a place with a large body of water.
Why water? Is it just because it's pretty?
He says it is healing. And he wants them to drive along the seashore. The goal is to break lingering patterns of habit.
It's a pattern interrupt.
Yes. Your house holds your habits. Your furniture holds your memories. To disconnect from the negative elements of the past, you sometimes need a radical change of environment.
Yeah.
And he says sunlight and affection have equal healing effect.
He will literally soak up affection now as he soaks up the sun. That is a beautiful image.
It is. It's the antidote to the cold, rigid pectorin state. Warmth, flow, water, sun. It's melting the ice.
So let's wrap this up. We have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We've gone from 1960s Elmira to the biochemistry of paralysis.
We started with the psychological profile, the danger of that all-or-nothing, unstinting focus.
Yeah.
We looked at the scary biology of how the body manufactures chemicals like pectorin to freeze us when we feel trapped.
We looked at the ghosts of the past. The mother in the wheelchair with the bent arms, the aunt who couldn't get up in the morning, and the epic rebellion of the ironing board.
And we look at the cures, the peanut oil for the joints, the typing for the fingers, and the ocean for the soul.
The big lesson here for me is that the body is a mirror. It's not a separate machine that just breaks down randomly. It is constantly acting out the drama of our psyche.
The alarms are off, Seth says. Once you understand the message the body is sending, you don't need the symptom anymore. The symptom is just the messenger. If you get the message, I feel trapped, I need to create, the body can stop shouting at you.
And before we sign off, a reminder to support the source of this incredible material.
Absolutely. This wisdom comes from the New Awareness Network. Please visit sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Buy the books.
There is so much more in there than we could ever cover in one deep dive. We barely scratched the surface of session 346 today.
We really did.
And here is a final thought for you to take with you into the rest of your day or night. Seth said Ruburt's fingers released the moment he started typing his book. The physical paralysis vanished when the creative action began.
It makes you wonder, what physical pain or tension are you holding on to right now simply because you haven't started your own dream book yet?
Yeah.
What is the thing you are supposed to be doing that your body is begging you to start?
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this step dive with us. We'll see you next time.
Good night, everyone.